What if the people you trusted most abandoned you when you needed them the most? Sarah thought she had it all: a loving husband, a stable job, and a family that embraced her as one of their own. But when her pregnancy left her vulnerable, the people she sacrificed everything for turned their backs on her. Left to fend for herself, she fought to rebuild her life, only to watch the very people who betrayed her lose everything in the ultimate twist of fate. And when they came crawling back, begging for her help, she had one final answer. Stay tuned to see how Sarah takes back her power, and don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories. My name is Sarah, and for a long time, I thought I had life all figured out. A great job as head of marketing, a loving husband, David, and a comfortable, secure life. I was paying off our mortgage with my own salary, proud of my financial independence, believing I had built something solid. Family was a big part of our lives. David had a younger brother, Michael, and their mom, Barbara, was always around. Their father had passed away years ago, so the boys took it upon themselves to look after her. I found it touching. Watching David care for his family made me love him even more. Barbara seemed to like me at first. She'd chat with me over coffee at family gatherings, always asking about my work. "Marketing, huh?" she'd say with a nod. "Sounds important." I liked that she took an interest. I wanted to fit into David's family, to be part of their tight-knit world. Our first few years of marriage were filled with weekend barbecues, holiday dinners, and impromptu game nights with the extended family. I remember one Thanksgiving, crammed around Barbara's dining table, laughter filling the air. "Pass the gravy, will you?" David's uncle bellowed from the end of the table. "You've had enough gravy, old man," Barbara shot back, grinning as she handed it over. I looked around the table at the familiar faces, feeling warm, safe. This was my family now, too. The first crack appeared at a New Year's Eve party at Barbara's house. I was in the kitchen, refilling my glass of wine, when I overheard her talking to David and Michael in the living room. "Did you see what Jennifer's wearing?" Barbara snickered. "That dress must have cost all of $5. "Nice." I froze, my hand tightening around the bottle. Jennifer was David's cousin, a single mom trying her best. "I mean, I'm just saying," Barbara continued, her voice laced with disdain. "Some people should know their limits. Don't try to play with the big boys if you can't keep up." Laughter, low, conspiratorial. I peeked around the corner. Barbara leaned in, whispering to her sons, their heads close together, giggling like children sharing a secret. Something twisted in my stomach. This wasn't the warm, welcoming family I thought I knew. At first, I told myself it was harmless teasing, but as time passed, I couldn't ignore the unease creeping in. It wasn't just Jennifer. Barbara always found someone to pick apart, and every time David and Michael were right there, nodding along, their laughter muffled but ever present. At every family gathering, it was the same pattern. Barbara huddled with her sons, whispering behind cupped hands, their eyes scanning the room before settling on their next target. One Easter Sunday, I had enough. Barbara was in the living room, David and Michael flanking her like loyal guards. "Did you see Susan's new car?" she said, her voice low, but not nearly low enough. "Probably got it from one of those buy here, pay here lots. I bet she'll be paying it off until she's 80. Son, before I even realized I was moving, I was on my feet, crossing the room. "Hey," I said, sharper than I intended. "Don't you think that's a bit much? Susan can probably hear you." The room fell silent. Barbara's eyes locked onto mine, narrowing. "Well, well," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like we've offended your delicate sensibilities, Sarah." David and Michael exchanged uneasy glances, and in that moment, standing in the heavy silence, I realized something. I wasn't part of their family. I never had been. "I just think it's rude." I pressed on, my heart pounding. "Why do you always have to put people down?" Barbara's fake smile disappeared. "If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Why don't you go sit somewhere else?" I felt like I'd been slapped. I looked at David, expecting him to back me up, but he just stared at the floor. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "I will. From that day on, family gatherings became a special kind of hell. I'd sit alone, nursing a drink, while David stuck to his mother's side like glue. He'd throw me apologetic glances now and then, but he never came to sit with me. Why don't you ever stand up to her? I asked him one night after a particularly awful dinner. David sighed, running a hand through his hair. She's my mother, Sarah. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to have my back. But he never did. And slowly, I started finding reasons not to go to these family events, work emergencies, migraines, anything to avoid the cold stares and whispered insults. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life threw me another curveball. I was pregnant. I stared at the little plastic stick in my bathroom, my heart racing. 2 pink lines, clear as day. David, I called out, my voice shaky. Can you come here? He appeared in the doorway, his face concerned. What's wrong? Wordlessly, I held out the test. His eyes widened as he took it from me. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment I felt like maybe everything would be okay. Maybe this baby would bring us closer together, heal the rifts that had been growing between us. But life had other plans. The pregnancy was rough from the start. Constant nausea, dizziness, and a perpetual threat of miscarriage kept me on edge. My doctor put me on bed rest, which meant working remotely. As the weeks went by, my condition worsened. My eyesight started to deteriorate rapidly, a rare complication that my doctor said could be temporary but might also be permanent. Squinting at my laptop became impossible. With a heavy heart, I had to quit my job. I needed David more than ever, but he seemed to be drifting away. He'd come home late from work, citing extra projects or drinks with colleagues. More often than not, I'd fall asleep alone, the echo of the front door closing jolting me awake in the middle of the night. The day of my C-section arrived faster than I expected. My eyesight had worsened to the point where the doctors insisted on the procedure. Natural birth was just too risky. As I lay on the cold operating table, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. "Where's David?" I asked the nurse, my voice trembling. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Your husband's in the waiting room, dear. He said he'd rather stay there." The surgery went smoothly, and soon I heard the most beautiful sound, my son's first cry. As they placed him on my chest, I felt a rush of love so intense it took my breath away. Later, in the recovery room, David finally showed up. His face was a mask of discomfort and annoyance. "Look, Sarah, I got to say something. This whole thing, it's not right." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "Normal women give birth on their own, without all this surgery crap. And men, we're not supposed to be here for this. We should be meeting our wives and kids at home, like in the old days." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "David, I couldn't risk." "Save it," he cut me off. "I'm heading home. This place gives me the creeps." The next few weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. David was rarely home, and when he was, he contributed nothing to our son's care. Instead, he complained. "Can't you shut him up?" He'd growl when our baby cried in the middle of the night. "I'm trying," I'd whisper, exhaustion pressing down on me like a weight. "He's teething, David. It hurts him." But David had no patience. "All you do is focus on the kid. What about me, huh? What about our sex life?" I would stare at him, too drained to even argue. I was surviving on 2 hours of sleep, still recovering from major surgery, and this was what he was worried about. As the weeks turned into months, his dissatisfaction only grew. One evening, as I rocked our 6-month-old, trying to soothe his cries, David dropped a bombshell. "You need to go back to work." I turned to him, disbelief written all over my face. "What? But the baby—" "We'll hire a nanny," he cut me off. "We can't keep living like this, Sarah. We need the money." I wanted to argue, to tell him that our son needed me, that I wasn't ready, but the look in his eyes told me it was pointless. So, with a heavy heart, I started job hunting. Finding work with my compromised vision wasn't easy. Eventually, I landed a position at a smaller company, but the pay was nowhere near what I had earned before. When I told David, his reaction was exactly what I had expected. "That's it?" he scoffed. "We're paying a nanny for this?" Tears stung my eyes. "I'm doing my best, David. It's not easy with my eyesight." "Excuses," he muttered before walking away. And so began my new reality. Rushing to work every morning, guilt gnawing at me as I left my son with a stranger. Struggling through my shifts with my limited vision. Coming home to a resentful husband and a child who needed me more than ever. Time passed in a haze of exhaustion, tension, and survival. Before I knew it, 2 years had gone by since my son's birth. Despite everything, I loved him fiercely. Every milestone, every laugh, every sleepy cuddle reminded me why I endured. But family gatherings remained a source of stress, particularly because of Barbara. She played the doting grandmother when others were watching, but there was no warmth behind it. "Come to Grandma," she'd coo, arms outstretched. But my son would cling to me, turning his face away from the stranger before him. Barbara's expression would darken with frustration. "What have you been telling him about me?" she'd accuse. "You're turning my own grandson against me." I kept my voice even. "He just doesn't know you well, Barbara." "Well, if you visited more often." "Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped, but she was already storming off to complain to David. Then, on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning, my world shifted again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my trembling hands, my pulse pounding in my ears. Positive. A wave of fear washed over me. My first pregnancy had left me broken, my health hanging by a thread. Could my body survive another? Did I even have a choice? I ran the numbers in my head, counting the weeks. It was already too late. The decision had been made for me. With shaking hands, I called David at work. "What is it?" he answered, his tone impatient. "David, I'm pregnant." There was a long pause. "Look, Sarah, I'm busy. We'll talk later. Just don't quit your job, all right? We can't afford that." The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling more alone than ever. Thankfully, this pregnancy proved easier than my first. My morning sickness was manageable, and my vision remained stable. I continued working, determined to provide for my growing family. But as my belly swelled, the distance between David and me seemed to grow exponentially. He spent more and more time at his mother's house, often not coming home until late at night. One evening, as I struggled to put our son to bed while balancing my swollen belly, David walked in. "Hey," I said, hopeful for some help. "Can you read him a story? I'm exhausted." David glanced at us, then at his watch. "Can't. I promised Mom I'd help her move some furniture. Don't wait up." As the door closed behind him, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I looked at my son, his big eyes staring up at me trustingly, and at my rounded belly, home to a child I already loved fiercely. As my 7th month of pregnancy rolled around, I found myself preparing for Thanksgiving. Guests started arriving in the afternoon. My parents came early, my mom immediately rolling up her sleeves to help in the kitchen. Friends and relatives trickled in, filling our home with chatter and laughter. Just as I was about to serve dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Michael, David's younger brother, and to everyone's surprise, he had a woman with him. "Everyone, this is Tiffany," Michael announced, beaming. "My fiancée!" The room fell silent for a moment before erupting in congratulations. I plastered on a smile, trying to ignore the twinge of jealousy at the way David's eyes lit up at the sight of his brother's happiness. Barbara arrived shortly after, her eyes widening as she took in Tiffany. "Well, well," she said, her voice dripping with approval. "Aren't you a sight for sore eyes?" Throughout dinner, Barbara fawned over Tiffany, peppering her with questions and hanging on her every word. I tried to focus on being a good hostess, but I couldn't help overhearing their conversation. "So, Tiffany," Barbara said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. "Michael tells me you're a manager at National Bank. How prestigious." Tiffany nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. "Yes, I've been there for about 5 years now." Barbara beamed. "You must be doing very well for yourself, unlike some people who can only pop out babies and breed poverty," she added, throwing a pointed look in my direction. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. My mother tensed beside me, ready to speak up, but I placed a hand on her arm, silently pleading with her not to make a scene. "You know," Barbara continued, her voice sickeningly sweet, "Tiffany here makes $155,000 a month. Now that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful." Tears pricked at my eyes as I remembered the years I'd spent supporting our family. paying the mortgage, building a career I was proud of. All of that seemed forgotten now. "I think we should continue this lovely evening somewhere more suitable," Barbara announced, standing up. "Tiffany, dear, why don't we all go to that new restaurant downtown? My treat, of course." Before I could process what was happening, Barbara, David, Michael, and Tiffany were heading for the door. David didn't even glance back at me as they left. The remaining guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the festive mood thoroughly ruined. One by one, they made their excuses and left, leaving only my parents behind. They offered to help me, but I refused, saying that they needed to rest themselves. Finally alone, I sank onto the couch and let the tears flow freely. Hours passed as I sobbed, my hand resting on my swollen belly, wondering how my life had come to this. It was nearly dawn when I heard the front door open. David stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. He didn't say a word as he made his way to the bedroom. With shaking hands, I picked up my phone and opened social media. There they were, Barbara, David, Michael, and Tiffany, grinning for selfies at an expensive nightclub. The caption read, "Best Thanksgiving ever with my real family." As my due date approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The doctors had scheduled my C-section, insisting it was the safest option given that it had been less than 3 years since my last one. I tried to focus on preparing for our new arrival, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with David. One chilly winter afternoon, I found him unpacking bags full of summer clothes. "What's all this?" I asked, puzzled. David shrugged, barely meeting my eyes. "Just saw a good sale. Thought I'd update my wardrobe." It didn't make sense, but with the impending birth occupying my thoughts, I pushed my suspicions aside. I'd been meticulously saving money in a separate account, determined to take a couple of months off work to recover and bond with our new baby. My workplace had approved 2 months of unpaid leave, which was a relief. I'd set aside enough for the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 3-year-old. For once, I felt prepared. 3 days before my scheduled C-section, chaos erupted. I was resting on the couch when David burst through the door, Barbara hot on his heels. "Hurry up!" Barbara barked as David rushed to our bedroom. I struggled to my feet, waddling after them. David was throwing clothes into a suitcase, the summer clothes he bought. "David," I said, my voice rising with panic, "what are you doing?" He barely glanced at me. "Michael's getting married in Hawaii. We're all going." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What? But my C-section is in 3 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" David zipped up his suitcase, finally meeting my gaze with cold indifference. "You'll manage. You always do." Before I could respond, he brushed past me, Barbara ushering him out the door. The door slammed, leaving me in stunned silence. Reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. I scrambled for my phone, my hand shaking as I checked our joint account. Empty. All the money I'd saved, gone. With trembling fingers, I dialed David's number. He answered on the final ring. "What?" he snapped. "The money," I choked out. "All our savings, where is it?" There was a pause, then a cold laugh. "We needed it for Michael's wedding gift. Don't be so greedy, Sarah." The line went dead. A sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I looked down in horror to see a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. Panic seized me. I couldn't go into labor now. The risk to my previous C-section scar was too great. With one hand on my belly and the other clutching my phone, I called emergency services. The hospital was chaos, doctors shouting, machines beeping. I woke hours later to the gentle beeping of monitors. My mother's tear-stained face swam into view. "Sarah," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're okay. The baby's okay." Slowly, the fog lifted. I'd nearly died. My baby had nearly died, but we'd made it. 3 days after the emergency C-section, I was feeling surprisingly strong, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were pleased with my recovery and gave me the green light to go home. David hadn't called once since he'd left for Hawaii, not to check if I was alive, not to ask about his new son. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I called my parents and asked to stay with them for a while. Their response was immediate and supportive. My parents doted on both boys, giving me time to rest and recover. I started researching divorce lawyers and gathering documentation of our finances. Then, exactly a week after I'd left the hospital, my phone rang. David's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third call. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" David's voice was a mixture of anger and confusion. I took a deep breath. "I'm with my parents, David, with both of our sons. I filed for divorce." There was a moment of stunned silence, then a bark of laughter. "Divorce? Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you?" "Everything you've done?" I felt a surge of anger. "You mean like abandoning me right before I gave birth or stealing all our savings?" "Oh, get over it," he scoffed. "I'll pay you back. No problem. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He launched into a tirade about how Michael's new wife had offered him a job as her deputy at the bank, how they were going to start their own financial company, how she was going to make them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. "You never believed in me, Sarah," he spat. "You always shot down my ideas, always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now, and you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. To my surprise, David didn't contest anything. He returned the money he'd taken from our accounts and agreed to pay alimony. When it came to the house, I had years of mortgage statements proving I'd been the one making payments. The judge awarded it to me without hesitation. The day I returned home with my boys, David was there, stuffing the last of his things into boxes. He sneered as I walked in, the baby cradled in my arms and our toddler clutching my hand. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he scoffed, hefting a box onto his shoulder. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because as he walked out the door, something shifted. A weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted off my shoulders. The house, once filled with tension and unspoken resentment, suddenly felt bigger, lighter. A year and a half passed. Life had settled into a new rhythm, one that belonged to me and my boys alone. I returned to work, juggling my career and motherhood, carving out a life where we weren't just surviving, but thriving. It wasn't always easy, but it was ours. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a news alert. The moment I read the headline, my jaw dropped. "Local banker exposed as fraud leaves family in ruins." I clicked the article, my heart pounding. Tiffany Michael's wife, the same woman who had swept into their lives with grand promises of wealth and success, had been running an elaborate con. She had convinced David, Michael, and Barbara to take out massive loans to fund a non-existent financial firm. She had even talked them into mortgaging Barbara's house, funneling every penny they had into this illusion of a golden future. But there had never been a company, no empire, no wealth. The office she had shown them was nothing more than a short-term rental, a carefully staged prop in her grand deception. And then, just as swiftly as she had appeared, Tiffany vanished, taking millions with her. The betrayal ran even deeper. Hidden in the fine print of their debt-ridden downfall was another loan, one taken out specifically to fund Michael and Tiffany's extravagant Hawaiian wedding. The very event David had abandoned us for. Shock, disbelief, and yes, I'll admit, a quiet satisfaction curled in my chest as I read. They lost everything. Barbara's house, their cars, their savings, every last material possession, seized. And the debt? Crushing. Through the grapevine, I heard the fallout was swift and brutal. Barbara, once so proud and imperious, had been forced to take a job as a cashier just to scrape by. David and Michael, both drowning in financial ruin, were barely staying afloat. I had never been more grateful for the divorce. My boys and I were untouched, safe from the disaster that had swallowed my ex-husband's family whole. Then, just when I thought it was all behind me, my phone rang. Barbara's name flashed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sarah." Barbara's voice was small, stripped of its usual arrogance. We need your help." She launched into a plea, her words tumbling over each other. They had nowhere to go. David and Michael were desperate. The children need their father and grandmother, she insisted. You can't turn your back on family. I took a slow, steady breath, memories flashing before me. The Thanksgiving humiliation, being abandoned before my C-section. The years of being dismissed, belittled, treated as less. Family? My voice was calm, unwavering. You weren't concerned about family when you left me alone, pregnant and in danger. You weren't concerned about family when you stole my savings. You weren't concerned about family when you called me a loser. Barbara started to protest, but I didn't let her. I'm sorry you're in this situation, but I'm not responsible for the choices you, David, and Michael made. My priority is my children, and I won't expose them to the chaos you created. Please don't contact me again. I hung up, blocked her number, and as I set the phone down, I felt at peace. It was done, truly done. What do you do when the people who once belittled you, abandoned you, and stole from you suddenly come crawling back, begging for help? Sarah had spent years sacrificing for a family that never truly saw her as their own. She worked hard, built a life, and even supported David financially when he contributed nothing. Yet when she needed him most during her pregnancy, during her most vulnerable moments, he turned his back on her. He left her alone to chase illusions of wealth, throwing his lot in with the people who never respected her. But life has a way of making things right. The same people who mocked Sarah for being just a mother found themselves bankrupt, ruined, and desperate, all thanks to their own greed. They had laughed at her struggles, dismissed her as unworthy, and now, with nothing left, they expected her to save them. But Sarah? She had already learned the most valuable lesson. Family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by love, respect, and actions. And the people who had chosen to betray her? They weren't her family, not anymore. So when Barbara called, pleading for help, expecting forgiveness, Sarah did something she had never done before. She put herself and her children first. No guilt, no hesitation, just a simple, final no. And just like that, the weight of the past lifted. She was free. Now, here's the real question. Would you have done the same? Would you have forgiven them, or would you have walked away like Sarah did? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
Money has a way of turning family dinners into battlefields. I learned this the hard way at my parents' mahogany table, watching my father's face as he delivered news that would shatter our carefully constructed world. Anderson Innovations is facing bankruptcy, he said, his voice steady despite the bomb he'd just dropped. The crystal glasses trembled as my mother Helen set down her wine too forcefully. I'm Chloe, and until that moment, I thought I understood the dynamics of wealth and power. I was wrong. My husband Ryan's hand tightened around his fork, knuckles white against the sterling silver. His mother Diane, sitting across from me, couldn't hide the flash of panic in her eyes. It was there and gone in an instant, replaced by something calculating that made my skin crawl. Surely there must be some mistake, Charles, Diane purred, leaning forward. Your company's stock has been soaring. Markets change, my father replied, cutting into his perfectly cooked steak. Technology is volatile. Sometimes empires fall. Ryan cleared his throat. Perhaps if we pooled our resources. There's nothing to pool, my father interrupted. The company's assets are frozen. Helen and I will need to downsize significantly. I watched my mother-in-law's face transform through a series of micro-expressions: shock, fear, anger, and finally, determination. She turned to me with eyes that reminded me of a predator sizing up wounded prey. Chloe, darling, surely your trust fund is tied to company stock, I cut in, the lie sliding easily off my tongue. Something in my gut had been warning me about Diane's intentions for months. Now I knew why. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Frank, my father-in-law, studied his plate with sudden intensity. He'd always been the quiet one, but tonight his silence spoke volumes. We're family, Ryan said finally, his voice strained. We'll figure something out. I turned to look at him, really look at him, and for the first time, I saw what I'd been refusing to see, the ambition burning behind his charm, the way his eyes darted between my father and his mother, calculating angles I couldn't yet see. Family, my father echoed, raising his glass. How fortunate we are to have such devoted relatives in times of crisis. The word devoted carried weight I couldn't quite decipher, but something in his tone made me sit straighter. I'd inherited more than just his green eyes. I had his instinct for reading people, and right now, every nerve ending was firing warnings. When did you first notice signs of trouble? Diane pressed, abandoning pretense. My father smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Trouble has a way of sneaking up on you, doesn't it? Rather like certain relationships. Ryan's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing too hard to be comforting. I resisted the urge to shake it off. We should discuss this privately, my mother interjected, ever the peacekeeper. Perhaps over coffee in the study. As chairs scraped back and tensions rose, I caught my father's eye. There was something there, a glimmer of satisfaction. Before I could analyze it further, Ryan was pulling me aside, his breath hot against my ear. We need to talk about this, he whispered urgently. About our future. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots I hadn't even known existed. The way Diane had been pushing Ryan to advance at his firm. The subtle digs about my simple lifestyle choices. The increasing pressure to attend social events where Ryan's mother paraded us around like prized show horses. As I watched them file into my father's study, Ryan's straight-back determination, Diane's predatory grace, Frank's defeated shuffle, one thought crystallized with perfect clarity. This dinner wasn't just about money. It was about unmasking truths that had been hiding in plain sight. And somehow, I knew this was only the beginning. The morning after my father's announcement, I found Ryan in our home office, hunched over spreadsheets I'd never seen before. The glow of his laptop cast shadows across his face, making him look older, harder somehow. "You're up early," I said, lingering in the doorway. He didn't look up. "Someone has to figure this out. Your father's company employs thousands of people. Did you know that?" The accusation in his tone made my spine stiffen. "Of course I know that. Then why aren't you more worried?" His fingers drummed against the desk. "We need to talk to your father about accessing your trust fund." "No." Now he did look up, his charm slipping just enough to reveal something uglier underneath. "This isn't the time for your independent woman routine, Chloe." "Routine?" The word tasted bitter. "Is that what you think it is?" My phone buzzed, a text from Megan, asking to meet for coffee. I needed that escape more than ever. "I have plans," I said, already turning away. "With who? Your little friend from the bookstore?" Ryan's chair scraped back. "We have real problems to deal with. Mother's already called twice this morning." "Of course she has." The words came out sharper than I intended. "And what brilliant solution did Diane propose?" "Don't say her name like that." "Like what?" "Like she's the enemy." He moved closer, reaching for my hand. "She's trying to help us." I pulled away, remembering the predatory gleam in Diane's eyes at dinner. "Is she? Or is she trying to help herself?" My phone buzzed again. Ryan glanced at it, his jaw tightening. "Go ahead. Run to Megan. But we're having this conversation when you get back." The coffee shop was busy, but Megan had claimed our usual corner table. One look at my face, and she pushed her untouched muffin toward me. "That bad?" I picked at the muffin's crust. "Ryan's been making calls all morning, looking at financial records. It's like he's possessed." "And Diane?" "Circling like a vulture." I met Megan's steady gaze. "You were right about her, about everything." "I never wanted to be right." She leaned forward. "What aren't you telling me?" Before I could answer, my mother's name flashed on my phone. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Darling." Helen's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Are you alone?" "I'm with Megan. What's wrong?" "Diane just left here. She had proposals about the company, about your father stepping down early to make way for..." She paused. For Ryan. The muffin turned to ash in my mouth. What? She suggested it would be best for everyone. A smooth transition, she called it. Keep it in the family. My laugh sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Ryan's been in corporate law for 3 years. He knows nothing about running a tech company. I don't think that matters to them, sweetheart. My mother's voice softened. There's something else. Your father, he seemed almost amused by the whole thing, like he was watching a play he'd already seen. The pieces started shifting in my mind, forming a different picture. I have to go. Megan caught my arm as I stood. Whatever you're thinking of doing, I'm not doing anything, I said, but we both knew it was a lie. I just need to understand what game everyone's playing. And when you do, I thought about Ryan's changed face in the morning light, about Diane's calculated concern, about my father's subtle smile at dinner. Then I'll decide if I want to keep playing at all. Walking home, my phone lit up with texts from Ryan. Mother's coming over for dinner. We need to present a united front. This is about our future, Chloe. Our future. I stopped walking, watching a couple argue silently through a restaurant window. Their gestures were familiar, his insistent, hers defensive. I wondered if they too were discovering that love wasn't enough when trust started crumbling. I typed back one word. Fine. Let them come. Let them show their hands. I had a feeling my father wasn't the only one testing loyalties, and maybe it was time I started my own game. I found the email by accident. Ryan had left his laptop open while taking a shower, and a notification popped up from Diane. Subject line: Strategy Meeting, Anderson Takeover. My fingers moved before my conscience could catch up. 3 clicks later, I was staring at months of correspondence between my husband and his mother, plotting their ascent through my family's supposed downfall. We need to strike while the iron's hot, Diane had written just hours ago. Charles is vulnerable. If we can get Chloe to convince him about the trust fund. The shower stopped running. I kept reading, my hands shaking, as I scrolled through their calculated manipulation. Every dinner, every casual suggestion, every concerned phone call, all carefully orchestrated steps in their plan. What are you doing? I didn't jump at Ryan's voice. Something had gone cold inside me, like a switch being flipped. Reading about how you and your mother plan to use my father's crisis to your advantage. Very thorough notes, by the way. You had no right. To what? Discover how my husband's been conspiring behind my back. I turned to face him, still in his towel, water dripping onto our expensive hardwood floors. Or should I say my father's future CEO? His face did something complicated. Shame, defiance, then that smooth mask I'd grown to hate. You don't understand business, Chloe. Sometimes opportunities. The laugh that escaped me didn't sound like my voice at all. Is that what I am to you? An opportunity. Don't be dramatic. He moved toward his closet, all casual confidence. Your father's company needs new leadership. Mother simply recognized. Your mother needs to stay the hell out of my family's business. I stood up, my whole body humming with rage. And you, God, I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same man you married. He started dressing, his movements precise and controlled. The same man who loves you. But love doesn't pay bills, does it? No, apparently it just finances hostile takeovers. His phone buzzed. Diane again, right on cue. Ryan glanced at it, then back at me. Mother's on her way over. We should discuss this as a family. Your mother is not my family. I grabbed my keys. And neither are you. Don't walk away from me. He caught my arm, gripped tight enough to leave marks. We need to handle this rationally. I looked down at his hand, then up at his face, like you've been handling everything, planning and plotting, while pretending to support me. I do support you. No, you support what I represent. My name, my connections, my trust fund. I yanked free. Tell me, was any of it real? Or was I just another stepping stone in Diane's grand plan? The silence stretched between us, filled with all the answers he couldn't give. His phone buzzed again. Insistent. You should get that, I said quietly. Wouldn't want to keep your mother waiting. She might miss her chance to rehearse your lines. Chloe, please. For a moment, his mask cracked, showing real fear. Everything I did for us. No. I opened the door, pausing in the threshold. Everything you did for yourself. The difference is, now I know it. I was halfway down the driveway when Diane's Mercedes pulled up. She emerged like an actress taking stage, all concerned faces and outstretched arms. Darling, where are you going? We need to talk about. Save your performance. I cut her off. I read the emails. She froze, then recovered smoothly. Whatever you think you saw was exactly what I needed to see. I met her eyes, refusing to flinch. Congratulations, Diane. You raised a son just as manipulative as his mother. I drove straight to my parents' house, my mind racing faster than my car. All those careful plans, all those strategic moves, they'd underestimated one crucial factor. They weren't the only ones who could play games. My father was in his study when I arrived, looking unsurprised to see me. Rough morning? You could say that. I sat down across from him, studying his calm expression. Did you know? He smiled, and suddenly I understood where I'd inherited my capacity for strategy. Why don't you tell me what you've learned? And we'll go from there. 3 days of silence from Ryan felt like holding my breath underwater. I'd moved into my old bedroom at my parents' house, surrounded by remnants of a simpler life. Debate team trophies, dog-eared books, photos of a younger me who still believed in fairy tales. The doorbell rang just as I was boxing up my wedding photos. Mother's voice drifted up the stairs, followed by Frank's distinctive shuffling steps. Not the Mitchell I'd expected. I found them in the sitting room. Frank looking smaller than I remembered, his shoulders curved inward like he was bracing for impact. Chloe. He twisted his wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd noticed before. I came without Diane's knowledge. Mother touched my arm. I'll give you two some privacy. You don't have to. Yes, Frank interrupted softly. She does. Once we were alone, he pulled an envelope from his jacket. These are copies of documents you need to see. Bank statements, emails, records of meetings I wasn't supposed to know about. My hands trembled as I read. Diane hadn't just been planning a company takeover. She'd been systematically dismantling my marriage for years. Every career move Ryan made, every social connection, every spontaneous decision had been orchestrated by his mother. Why are you showing me this? Frank's smile was tired. Because I've spent 35 years watching Diane destroy anything that threatens her ambitions. I won't watch her destroy you too. And Ryan? Does he know about all this? Ryan, Frank's voice cracked. My son stopped being his own man the day he learned to value status over substance, just like I did. My phone buzzed, Ryan's name lighting up the screen. I declined the call. He's been trying to reach me, Frank continued. Diane's furious that you left. She's already planning damage control, spreading rumors about your mental state, suggesting you're having an episode. Of course she is. I laughed, but it sounded more like breaking glass. Can't have people thinking her perfect plan might fail. There's more. Frank leaned forward. The trust fund inquiry. It wasn't just about accessing your money. They found out about your father's patent-pending technology. Something about quantum encryption. The room tilted sideways. Dad's secret project, the one he'd been developing for years, the one that could revolutionize digital security. They're not after the company, I whispered. They're after the patent. Diane has buyers lined up, foreign investors. The company's supposed financial troubles were just their way in. Frank stood, looking older than his 60 years. I should have spoken up sooner, should have been stronger. Why now? Because last night, I heard them planning to have you declared mentally unfit to manage your affairs. Ryan would become your legal guardian, giving him control of your trust fund and your shares in Anderson Innovations. My stomach lurched. They can't do that. With the right doctors, right lawyers, right story. He shrugged. Diane's been building the narrative for months. Your erratic behavior, your paranoid accusations, your emotional instability. The front door opened, mother returning with groceries. Frank moved toward the exit, then paused. I've already spoken to your father. Well, let's just say I'm not the only one who's been gathering evidence. After he left, I sat alone, staring at the documents until the words blurred. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Ryan. Please come home. We can fix this. I love you. 3 years of marriage. And I finally understood what those words really meant. I love what you can give me. I love what you represent. I love the power you provide. Mother found me still sitting there at sunset. She took one look at my face and poured 2 glasses of wine. You know, she said carefully, sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting back. Sometimes it's knowing when to walk away. I touched the documents Frank had brought, thinking of Ryan's text, of Diane's schemes, of everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty. No, I said finally. Sometimes the bravest thing is fighting back exactly when they expect you to walk away. The charity gala sparkled with artificial warmth, crystal chandeliers, casting shadows over faces I'd known my whole life. I hadn't planned to come, but father insisted. Keep your enemies closer, he'd said with that cryptic smile I was starting to understand. Diane held court near the champagne fountain, her red dress a splash of blood against the cream-colored walls. Ryan stood beside her, playing the dutiful son, though his eyes kept finding me across the room. Darling, Diane's voice carried over the murmur of conversation. We've missed you terribly, haven't we, Ryan? The crowd parted like water. I felt their stares, heard their whispers. Poor Chloe Anderson, having a breakdown. Such a shame about her family's troubles. Mother, Ryan stepped forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled back. Don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Heads turned. Diane's smile never wavered. You're looking rested. The time away has clearly done you good. Though I do worry about you, alone in that big house with your parents, especially given their current situation. My parents are fine. Of course they are. She touched my arm, her fingers cold. But there's no shame in seeking help when one's mental health is suffering. Ryan's been beside himself with concern. The room tilted slightly, so this was her play, setting the stage, building her narrative. I caught Frank's eye across the room. He looked away. Actually, I said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, I've been quite busy. Did you know Father's new encryption patent is generating quite a buzz? Several international buyers have expressed interest. Diane's fingers tightened on my arm. Patents? I wasn't aware Charles was still developing anything. Oh yes, revolutionary technology apparently. Though you'd know all about that, wouldn't you, given your recent meetings with certain investors? The color drained from her face. Behind her, Ryan went very still. I don't know what you're implying. No? I extracted myself from her grip. Funny, because I have emails suggesting otherwise. Would you like me to share them with the board members here tonight? You're obviously unwell, she said loudly. Ryan, darling, perhaps you should take your wife home before she embarrasses herself further. The only embarrassment, I replied, matching her volume, is how transparent your schemes have become. Tell me, does everyone here know you've been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent? Or was that supposed to be a surprise? The surrounding conversations died. Ryan stepped forward, panic breaking through his polished facade. Chloe, please. Please what? Keep quiet. Play my part? Be the good little wife, while you and your mother try to steal my father's company. That's enough. Diane's mask finally cracked. You ungrateful little... Ungrateful, I laughed, the sound echoing off crystal and marble. For what? The manipulation, the gaslighting, or the way you've turned my husband into your puppet? Well, how dare you? No, how dare you? I turned to the stunned crowd. My father's company isn't failing, but someone wanted you all to think it was. Someone who's been meeting with foreign investors, promising them technology that isn't hers to sell. Diane lunged forward, but Frank appeared suddenly, catching her arm. Don't, he said quietly. It's over. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at Ryan, Saw the boy I'd fallen in love with, drowning in the man his mother had created. I filed for divorce this morning, I said softly. You can stop pretending now. As I walked away, Diane's voice chased me. You'll regret this. When you're alone with nothing but your pride. Better alone with my pride, I called over my shoulder, than trapped in your web of lies. Outside, the night air hit like a slap. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Mother was waiting in the car, exactly as planned. Did you get it? I asked. She held up her phone, showing the video she'd recorded through the window. Every word. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Tomorrow the board would receive copies of everything. The emails, the recordings, the proof of Diane's betrayal. But tonight, I'd savor the look on her face when she realized her carefully constructed world was about to crumble. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be cold. Sometimes it just needs to be true. The morning after the gala, I found my father in his study, calmly watching news coverage of Anderson Innovations' stock price soaring. My public revelation of the encryption patent had sent the market into a frenzy. You knew, I said, not bothering with pleasantries. You knew about Diane's plans all along. He turned off the television. I suspected. The financial crisis was a test. One that revealed exactly what I needed to see. A test. The word tasted bitter. You used me as bait. I protected the company. What about protecting me? My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what they were planning to do? They were going to have me declared incompetent, take everything, which is exactly why I needed proof. He stood, pulling a file from his desk. Every move they made, every meeting, every phone call, all documented. But we needed them to show their hand completely. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You let me marry him knowing he might be part of this? I let you make your own choice. His expression softened slightly, though I hoped you'd see through him sooner. A knock interrupted us. Mother entered, her face pale. They're here. Who's here? Ryan and his lawyers. She touched my arm. And Dr. Phillips, the psychiatrist. My stomach dropped. They're actually going through with it. They filed the competency hearing papers this morning, Father said quietly, before the stock market opened. The room started spinning. Even after everything, the confrontation, the evidence, the public humiliation, they were still trying to take control. Let them in. Chloe. Let them in. Ryan entered first, looking polished and concerned. The perfect worried husband. 2 lawyers followed, then Dr. Phillips, and finally Diane, wearing victory like expensive perfume. This is for your own good, Ryan said softly. You're not well, sweetheart. The scene you caused last night was the truth. I met his gaze steadily. Every word. You accused your mother-in-law of corporate espionage in front of half of Boston's elite. Dr. Phillips made a note on his pad. Along with paranoid delusions about foreign investors and patent theft. Interesting choice of words, Father interrupted, considering the meeting Diane had last week with certain Chinese technology firms. Diane's smile flickered. I don't know what you're implying. No implications. He opened the file on his desk. Just facts, dates, recordings. Enough evidence to interest not just the board, but the FBI. The lawyers exchanged glances. Dr. Phillips cleared his throat. Nevertheless, Miss Anderson's erratic behavior. Mrs. Mitchell, Ryan corrected automatically. Not for long. I pulled out my own file. Divorce papers, already signed. Your plan might have worked if you'd been smarter, or if I'd been weaker. You can't prove anything, Diane snapped, mask finally cracking. Actually, Frank's voice came from the doorway, making everyone turn. She can, and I'm here to make sure she does. He walked in slowly, placing a USB drive on Father's desk. Everything, Charles. Every meeting, every plan, every conversation. I may have been a coward in my marriage, but I won't let you destroy my son's soul like you destroyed mine. Ryan stared at his father, color draining from his face. Dad, I'm sorry, son. Frank's voice was gentle. But this has to end. The next few minutes blurred, lawyers muttering urgently, Dr. Phillips making excuses to leave, Diane's carefully constructed facade crumbling into desperate threats. But I couldn't look away from Ryan's face as he finally understood. He'd lost everything by trying to take what was never his. The competency hearing is cancelled, one lawyer announced, given the circumstances. And the divorce? I asked. Will be uncontested. He glanced at Ryan. Unless. No, Ryan said quietly. No contest. They filed out slowly, leaving only the heavy silence of endings. Father touched my shoulder. It's over. But it wasn't. Not really. Because now I had to face the hardest truth. Everyone I'd trusted had been playing their own game. Even my own father. Was any of it real? I asked the empty room. Or were we all just pieces on someone else's board? No one answered. Maybe that was an answer in itself. The Anderson Innovations Board meeting room felt like a courtroom, with 12 pairs of eyes watching me take my seat. Ryan and Diane sat opposite, their lawyers flanking them like guards. Father occupied his usual place at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Before we begin, Diane's lawyer started. My clients would like to propose a settlement. No. I placed a single USB drive on the polished table. No more deals. No more negotiations. Today we're going to watch something interesting. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Chloe, please. Computer's ready, Miss Anderson, the tech assistant announced. The lights dimmed. On the massive screen, Diane appeared in crystal clear resolution, meeting with foreign investors in a hotel room I recognized from last month. The encryption technology will be yours, screen Diane promised, once we secure control of the company. Turn it off, Diane snapped, half rising. Why? I kept my voice steady. This is my favorite part, where you explain how you'll have me declared mentally unfit to access my shares. The board members murmured. Ryan's lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear. You've edited this, Diane accused. This is another example of her instability. The footage is authenticated, Father interrupted, as are the financial records, showing attempted wire transfers to offshore accounts. Ryan's face had gone ashen. Mother? Oh, don't act surprised. My laugh felt like broken glass. You were there for some of these meetings. Remember Singapore, when you held my hand at dinner while your mother sold my family's legacy behind my back? I never meant to get caught? I stood slowly. That's the problem with people like you and your mother, Ryan. You're so focused on what you want to take, you never notice what you're losing. Enough. Diane's mask finally cracked. You spoiled little girl. You have no idea what it takes to build something, to climb, to steal, I challenged, to manipulate, to destroy your own son's soul just to satisfy your ambition. Everything I did was for him. No. Frank's voice came from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him enter. Everything you did was for yourself, and I have the proof. He walked to the table, placing another drive next to mine. 35 years of evidence. Every scheme, every manipulation, every destroyed life you left in your wake, including what you did to the Harrismans last year. The color drained from Diane's face. Several board members leaned forward, suddenly alert. Frank, she whispered, you wouldn't. I already have. He turned to the board. I've submitted everything to the SEC. They're very interested in certain real estate transactions from 2019. Ryan stood abruptly. Dad, what are you doing? Choosing truth over power. Try it sometime, son. The next few minutes dissolved into chaos. Lawyers huddling, board members making calls, Diane's carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. The board will need to deliberate, the chairman announced finally, but given the evidence, you can't do this, Diane interrupted. I'll release everything, every dirty secret, every skeleton. Go ahead. I met her desperate gaze. Unlike you, I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. She lunged across the table, papers flying. Security moved quickly, but not before she grabbed my arm, her nails drawing blood. I made you, she hissed. Without my son, you're nothing. I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned closer, speaking softly enough that only she could hear. No, Diane, you didn't make me, you revealed me, and that's your biggest mistake. As security led them out, Ryan looked back once. For a moment, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with. Lost, broken, but finally free from his mother's shadow. I'm sorry, he mouthed. I nodded, but didn't speak. Some apologies come too late to matter. Father touched my shoulder. The board will vote to press charges. Good. I gathered my things, suddenly exhausted. But that's not why I did this. Then why? I thought about Diane's words. I made you. Because sometimes, I said quietly, the only way to unmake someone else's version of you is to show them who you really are. The truth, it turns out, is the sweetest revenge of all. The divorce papers felt lighter than I expected, maybe because I'd already done the heavy lifting, carrying other people's expectations, shouldering their ambitions, bearing the weight of false love. Megan poured coffee as I signed the final page. My kitchen, once filled with Ryan's expensive gadgets, now held only what I truly needed. Have you seen the news? She asked, sliding her phone across the table. Diane Mitchell faces federal charges, the headline declared. Below it, a smaller story. Frank Mitchell files for divorce. Good for Frank, I said, meaning it. Better late than never. My phone buzzed. Ryan's number. I declined the call, just as I had the last dozen. Some conversations weren't worth having anymore. Your father called, Mother said, entering with a stack of mail. The board approved the new security protocols. The encryption patent is safe. And the company? Stronger than ever. She hesitated. Ryan's law firm dropped him. Apparently, attempted corporate espionage isn't good for business. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to peace. The quiet kind that comes after a storm. The doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw Frank, standing on the porch, looking older but somehow lighter. I'm not staying, he said when I opened the door. I just wanted you to have this. He handed me a small box. Inside lay a familiar pearl necklace, the one Diane had worn to every important event, her symbol of achieved status. She threw it at me during the divorce discussion, Frank explained. Said it represented everything she'd sacrificed for our family. But we both know she never sacrificed anything. She only took. Frank, let me finish. He straightened his shoulders. I'm moving to Maine. Bought a small bookstore up there. Always wanted to run one, before Diane convinced me it wasn't ambitious enough. I touched the pearls, feeling their smooth surface. Why give these to me? Because you showed me something I'd forgotten. That real strength isn't about taking what you want. It's about standing firm in who you are. After he left, I sat on the porch steps, watching the autumn leaves dance across the lawn. Mother joined me, her shoulder touching mine. What will you do with them? She asked, nodding at the pearls. I thought about Diane, about how desperately she'd chased symbols of success, turning her son into a reflection of her own ambitions. There's a women's shelter downtown, I said. They help people rebuild their lives. Maybe these can fund someone else's fresh start. Mother smiled, understanding what I wasn't saying. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about transforming their weapons into something better. Inside, Megan was clearing the coffee cups. Ready for dinner, that new bistro opened downtown. Actually, I interrupted. I thought we could cook here, something simple. She paused, then grinned. Like those terrible pancakes we used to make in college? Exactly like that. As we gathered ingredients, I caught my reflection in the window. No designer clothes, no careful makeup, no pretense. Just me, finally comfortable in my own skin. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Ryan. I never deserved you. I deleted it without responding. He was right. But that wasn't the point anymore. The point was that I'd finally learned to deserve myself. You're smiling, Megan observed, measuring flour with cheerful imprecision. Because I just realized something. I cracked an egg, letting the shell fall away, clean and complete. All this time, I thought I was fighting to save my family's company, or my marriage, or even my dignity. But really, I was fighting to save myself, and I did. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the kitchen in shades of gold. Somewhere across town, Diane was facing the consequences of her actions. Somewhere in Maine, Frank was starting over. And here, in this kitchen that was finally truly mine, I was doing what I should have done years ago, living life on my own terms, making a mess, and not apologizing for any of it. Sometimes I wonder if home is just a collection of memories we carry, because the house I walked into that day wasn't mine anymore. The walls had been stripped of Dad's photographs, replaced by abstract art in muted grays and beiges. Our worn leather couch, the one where Dad and I spent countless movie nights, was gone, replaced by some modern monstrosity that looked about as comfortable as a marble slab. I stood in the doorway, my weekend bag still clutched in my hand, trying to process what felt like walking into a stranger's house. The scent of unfamiliar potpourri burned my nostrils, erasing the lingering traces of Dad's favorite sandalwood incense that Mom had kept burning since he passed. "Harmony, you're early." Mom's voice carried from the kitchen, followed by the clatter of dishes and unfamiliar laughter. "Come meet everyone." Everyone. I'd only been gone for 2 days, visiting Grandpa Walter. I dragged myself toward the kitchen, each step feeling heavier than the last. The scene that greeted me made my stomach twist. Mom, wearing a silk blouse I'd never seen before, stood at the counter beside a tall man with salt and pepper hair. A teenage girl perched on one of our bar stools, tapping away at her phone. "Sweetheart, this is Gregory and his daughter Sophie." Mom's smile was too bright, too forced. "Gregory and I have been seeing each other for a while now, and well." She held up her left hand, where a diamond ring caught the light. The room started spinning. "A while," my voice came out sharper than I intended. "How long is a while exactly?" "6 months," Gregory answered, stepping forward with an extended hand. "Your mother's told us so much about you." I stared at his hand until he awkwardly withdrew it. 6 months. Dad had been gone for barely 8. "We wanted to surprise you with the renovations," Mom continued, either oblivious to or ignoring my reaction. "Sophie has wonderful taste. She helped pick out everything." Sophie finally looked up from her phone. "The old stuff was kind of depressing, no offense." "That old stuff was my dad's." The words came out like ice. "Harmony," Mom's tone carried a warning. "We need to move forward. It's what your father would have wanted." "Really? Did he tell you that before or after you started dating while he was dying?" "That's enough." Mom's face flushed. "Gregory and Sophie are moving in next week. I know this is a lot to process, but you need to adjust your attitude." I looked around the kitchen, at the new appliances, the fancy coffee maker that replaced Dad's beloved French press, the stranger and his daughter who had somehow colonized our space while I wasn't looking. "Where are Dad's things?" "We packed them away. The important stuff is in storage." "Storage?" My voice cracked. "Like he's just some old furniture you didn't want anymore." "Harmony Carter, you will not speak to me this way in front of our guests." "Our guests?" I laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. "They're not guests, Mom. You've already given them everything, haven't you? Did you even wait until Dad was cold in his grave?" I turned and ran upstairs before she could respond, taking the steps 2 at a time. My room was the only space untouched by this invasion. But for how long? How long before that too was erased, redecorated, given to Sophie? I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and called Grandpa Walter. "I can't stay here," I whispered when he answered. "Everything's different. She's different. Dad's just gone, like he never existed." "Come back," he said simply. "Your room here is always waiting." I started packing before he finished speaking, knowing this was just the beginning. Mom hadn't just redecorated our house, she'd declared war on Dad's memory. And I wasn't about to let her win. Grandpa Walter's guest room became my sanctuary over the next 2 weeks. Each morning, I'd wake up to the smell of coffee and bacon, so different from Mom's protein smoothies, and Sophie's endless chatter about her social media following. "Your mother called again," Walter said one morning, sliding a plate of eggs in front of me. His weathered hands trembled slightly, something I'd been noticing more lately. Did she ask about me, or just complain that I'm ruining her perfect new family portrait? Harmony, his voice, carried that gentle reproach that always made me feel like a child. "She wants you home." I stabbed at my eggs. "That's not home anymore. It's their show house now, with their fancy furniture and their—" The doorbell cut me off. Walter's eyebrows drew together. He rarely got visitors this early. When he opened the door, Gregory's voice carried into the kitchen, smooth as oil. "Walter, hope we're not interrupting breakfast." I froze, fork halfway to my mouth, as Gregory and Mom walked in like they owned the place. Mom wore her real estate agent smile, the one that could charm anyone into buying a cardboard box. "We need to discuss some things as a family," she announced, pointedly ignoring my death glare. "Actually, I was just leaving for school." I stood, but Walter's hand on my shoulder kept me in place. "Sit down, Cricket," he said, using Dad's old nickname for me. "Let's hear them out." Gregory pulled out a chair, his expensive watch catching the morning light. "Walter, we've been thinking about your situation. Living alone in this big house can't be easy at your age." My stomach dropped. Walter's fingers tightened on my shoulder. "I manage just fine," he said quietly. "Of course you do," Mom jumped in. "But Gregory has experience in elder care management. We've been looking at some wonderful assisted living communities." "Like hell you have," the words exploded out of me. "This is about the house, isn't it? You want to move him out so you can move in." "Harmony," Mom's smile cracked. "This is about what's best for everyone. The school district here is excellent for Sophie." "There it is," I laughed bitterly. "Everything's about Sophie now, isn't it? Dad's barely gone, and you're already planning to kick his father out of his own home." "That's not fair," Gregory interjected. "We're trying to help. Walter, the proceeds from selling this place could set you up comfortably." "I'm not selling." Walter's voice was steel. "Mason grew up in this house. Harmony practically lived here every summer. This isn't just property to be flipped." "Be reasonable," Mom pressed. "You can't manage alone forever. And with Harmony going to college soon." I caught the flash in Gregory's eyes at the mention of college. Something about it made my skin crawl. "Actually," I said slowly, "I've been thinking about taking a gap year. Stay here with Grandpa." Mom's face went white. "Absolutely not. We've discussed this. You're going to community college while living at home." "No, you discussed it, just like you discussed redecorating and getting engaged and erasing Dad from our lives. Your father would want us to move forward." Mom's composure finally cracked. "He wouldn't want us living in the past." "How would you know what he'd want? You were too busy planning your new life while he was dying." The silence that followed was deafening. Gregory cleared his throat, reaching for Mom's hand. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion another time. Perhaps you shouldn't continue it at all." Walter stood, suddenly looking every bit his 72 years. "This is my home, Lydia. It will remain my home. And Harmony is welcome here as long as she needs." They left shortly after, Mom's heels clicking angrily on the sidewalk. I watched through the window as Gregory helped her into his luxury car, his hand lingering possessively on her back. "You okay, Cricket?" Walter asked. "No." I turned to face him. "They're not going to stop, are they?" "Probably not." He smiled sadly. "But neither are we." I hugged him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of his aftershave, wondering how much time we had before they tried again. Because they would try again. I could see it in Gregory's calculating eyes. This was just the opening move in a game I was only beginning to understand. The bank statement sat on my laptop screen like a bomb waiting to detonate. I'd only logged into Dad's old account out of habit. He'd always insisted I learn about managing money early, but the numbers didn't make sense. The college fund he'd set up for me, the one that had held over $50,000 when he died, now showed a balance of $1,200. My hands shook as I scrolled through the transaction history. A series of transfers had drained the account over the past 3 months, each one authorized by Mom as the surviving account holder. The front door slammed downstairs at Walter's house, followed by his muffled greeting. Mom's voice carried up the stairs. She'd been showing up unannounced lately, probably hoping to wear down his resistance about selling. I grabbed my phone and snapped photos of the transaction records before closing the laptop. By the time I reached the kitchen, Mom was arranging grocery bags on the counter while Walter watched with barely concealed annoyance. Sophie's private school application was accepted, Mom announced, not even looking at me. We're all so excited. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Is that what you needed Dad's money for? She froze, just for a second, before continuing to unpack organic vegetables. I don't know what you're talking about. The college fund. My college fund. The one Dad saved for 10 years to build. I held up my phone, showing the transaction history. $50,000, Mom, gone in 3 months. Walter straightened in his chair. Lydia, tell me you didn't. It's more complicated than that. She finally turned to face us, her expression hardening. Gregory and I agreed that Sophie's education. Gregory? I laughed, the sound raw in my throat. Dad worked overtime for years to save that money. He skipped vacations, drove that old car, all so I could go to college. And you gave it to Gregory's daughter. Sophie deserves the same opportunities. Then let Gregory pay for them. The words exploded out of me. That money was Dad's last gift to me, and you stole it. I did not steal anything. Mom's voice turned sharp. I am still your mother, and I made a decision that benefits this entire family. We're not a family anymore, my voice cracked. We're just extras in the Gregory and Sophie show. That's enough. She slammed a hand on the counter. I've tried to be patient, but this attitude has to stop. You're coming home today. No more hiding at Walter's. Like hell she is. Walter stood, his voice quiet but firm. You've gone too far, Lydia. Stay out of this, Dad. Mom's eyes flashed. This is between me and my daughter. Your daughter. I stepped closer, trembling with rage. The one you betrayed, or the one you bought with my future. I did what I had to do to secure our future, all of our futures. She grabbed her purse. Gregory has connections. Sophie's education will benefit everyone in this family. Gregory isn't family, I shouted. And that money wasn't yours to give away. Well, it's done now. She headed for the door, then paused. When you're ready to be reasonable, we can discuss community college options. Gregory knows some excellent programs. Get out. The words came out, barely above a whisper. She blinked. Excuse me. Get out. I grabbed one of the grocery bags and hurled it at the door. Apples scattered across the floor like dropped grenades. Get out of this house. Get out of my life. Go play perfect family with Gregory and Sophie and leave me alone. Mom stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she straightened her shoulders and walked out, stepping over the scattered produce without another word. The silence that followed felt like glass about to shatter. Walter's hand found my shoulder, steady despite his tremors. We'll figure something out, Cricket, he said softly. I nodded, but my mind was already racing ahead. Dad had taught me about more than just bank accounts. He'd taught me about justice, about standing up for what's right. And somewhere in the mess Mom and Gregory had made of our lives, there had to be a way to make things right. I just had to find it. The first sign something was wrong came when Walter couldn't remember where he'd put his coffee cup. 3 times in one morning, he'd make a fresh cup, set it down somewhere, then start the process all over again. I found them later, one in the bathroom, one on the bookshelf, one growing cold by the washing machine. Just a foggy morning, he insisted. But his hands shook more than usual as he tried to sign some paperwork I'd brought home from school. I was researching local colleges on my laptop when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Gregory's number. Walter declined the call, but his expression darkened. They've been persistent, he said, rubbing his temples. Calling about the house almost daily now. Why didn't you tell me? You've got enough to worry about. He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Besides, I can handle Gregory Benson. His phone buzzed again. A text this time. Walter squinted at the screen, then handed it to me. Must have hit something wrong. The letters are all jumbled. My stomach clenched as I looked at the perfectly clear message. Final offer stands until Friday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. The letters look fine, Grandpa. He stared at me for a long moment, then slowly sat down. Ah, that single syllable carried the weight of everything we weren't saying. I reached for his hand, noting how cold his fingers felt. Have you seen Dr. Matthews lately? Last week, he withdrew his hand, suddenly fascinated by a loose thread on his sweater. There are some concerns. Nothing definitive yet. The doorbell interrupted us. Through the window, I spotted Mom's car in the driveway. Perfect timing, Walter muttered, heading for the door. Mom burst in before he could reach it, waving a stack of papers. Dad, you need to look at these projections. The market won't stay this high forever, and the offer Gregory's group is making is not up for discussion. Walter's voice had an edge I'd never heard before. You're being unreasonable. She spread the papers across the coffee table. These retirement communities have everything you need: medical care, social activities. What he needs is for you to back off, I snapped. Mom's eyes narrowed. Stay out of this, Harmony. This is about your grandfather's future. No, it's about Gregory wanting this house. Don't pretend it's anything else. Gregory's investment group sees potential here, yes, but this is about taking care of family, like you took care of my college fund? Walter swayed slightly, grabbing the wall for support. Neither of us noticed at first, too caught up in our argument. That money is being put to good use, Mom insisted. Sophie's future. A loud thud cut her off. Walter had slumped against the wall, his face ashen. Grandpa, I reached him first, helping him to the couch. Mom, get some water. She hesitated, then hurried to the kitchen. Walter squeezed my hand, his grip weaker than this morning. I'm fine, he whispered. Just dizzy. Mom returned with the water, hovering uncertainly. Dad, this is exactly why you need more support. Professional care. What I need, Walter interrupted, his voice stronger, is for you to stop trying to profit from my illness. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's face went blank. That perfect real estate agent mask sliding into place. I don't know what you mean. Gregory's been calling doctors' offices, I said quietly, asking about Grandpa's condition. How did he even know which doctors to call? Mom, she flushed. He's concerned about family. He's concerned about getting this house before the market drops. Walter struggled to sit up straighter. I may be sick, Lydia, but I'm not stupid. Mom gathered her papers with shaking hands. We'll discuss this when you're feeling more reasonable. After she left, I helped Walter upstairs to rest. Standing in his doorway, watching him settle into bed, I felt something inside me harden into resolve. We need to talk to a lawyer, I said. Tomorrow. He nodded, already drifting off. Your father would be proud of you, Cricket. I closed his door quietly, then went downstairs to start making calls. Mom and Gregory wanted a war over legacies. Fine, they'd get one. The lawyer's office felt too warm, despite the spring chill outside. I watched Walter's hands shake as he signed another document, each tremor a reminder of how much worse he'd gotten in just 2 weeks. This power of attorney ensures Harmony can make medical decisions if you become incapacitated, the lawyer explained, sliding another form across the desk. But there's something else we should discuss. Walter nodded, reaching for his water glass. Your daughter's fiancé has been making inquiries about involuntary conservatorship. The glass slipped from Walter's hand, water spreading across the mahogany desk like spilled secrets. On what grounds? I demanded, already knowing the answer. They're building a case around his cognitive decline. The lawyer's expression remained neutral. Your mother would be appointed as conservator, giving her control over his medical care and assets. Walter's laugh was bitter, including the house. Precisely. The lawyer leaned forward. Mr. Carter, I strongly recommend we file a counter petition immediately. With your current diagnosis, my phone buzzed, a text from Sophie, of all people. Mom says to check your email, important about graduation. The email loaded slowly, each word hitting like a punch. Due to your extended absences, your graduation status is under review. They're trying to stop me from graduating. My voice sounded distant, even to myself. Mom's on the school board. She's using that to force you home, Walter finished. Where they can control you too. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's one other option, but it's rather extreme. We listened as he outlined the plan. With each detail, I felt something inside me harden, like metal being forged. Do it, Walter said before I could speak. All of it. The drive home was silent until Walter suddenly said, "Stop at the house. Grandpa, you should rest. Please, Cricket." I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, now unrecognizable with its new landscaping and modern fixtures. Mom's car wasn't there, but Gregory's was. "Wait here," Walter said, using his spare key to enter. Through the window, I watched him move slowly through the living room, touching things. The wall where Dad's photos used to hang, the spot where our old couch had been. Gregory appeared from his home office, surprise turning to calculation on his face. Their conversation was muffled, but Gregory's posture grew increasingly tense. Walter's voice, raised just enough for me to catch, "Think I don't know what you did to your last wife's father?" Gregory took a step back, face draining of color. Walter emerged minutes later, looking exhausted but satisfied. "Take me home, Cricket." "What did you say to him?" "Just reminded him that old men often have interesting friends and good memories." He closed his eyes. "Your father wasn't the only one who knew how to plan ahead." That night, I couldn't sleep. The lawyer's words kept spinning through my head, mixing with memories. Dad teaching me to stand up for myself. Mom erasing him from our lives. Gregory's smug smile as he claimed our spaces one by one. My phone lit up with Mom's name. "This rebellion needs to end. Come home tomorrow, or there will be consequences." I typed back, "You're right, there will be." The next morning, Walter had another episode. Worse than before. As the paramedics loaded him into the ambulance, he gripped my hand. "Whatever happens," he whispered, "remember what your father always said about chess." I squeezed his hand, remembering Dad's lessons at the kitchen table. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a piece to win the game. Mom and Gregory arrived at the hospital minutes after us, all concerned faces and calculated sympathy. They didn't notice me slipping away to meet the lawyer in the parking lot, or see me signing the papers that would change everything. They wanted to play games with people's lives, fine. But they'd forgotten something crucial. I'd learned strategy from the best, and unlike them, I had nothing left to lose. Let the real game begin. The hospital chapel smelled like artificial flowers and broken promises. I sat in the back row, staring at the notification on my phone. Time of death, 3:47 a.m. 3 hours ago. Walter had slipped away while I was getting coffee, while Mom was handling paperwork, while Gregory was probably already calling his real estate contacts. The door creaked open. "There you are," Mom's voice, trying for sympathy, but landing somewhere near impatience. "We need to discuss arrangements." "Already?" My voice cracked. "He's barely cold." "Harmony." She sat beside me, smoothing her skirt. "There are practical matters. Like selling his house, moving his things, erasing him like you erased Dad? That's not fair." She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "The house needs to be handled before..." "Before what?" I stood, fury rising like bile. "Before I can stop you from stealing that too?" Her expression hardened. "The will reading is tomorrow. Gregory's lawyer thinks..." I laughed, the sound echoing off chapel walls. "Of course he does. Did you know Walter visited Gregory last week? Had quite an interesting conversation about Gregory's past." Mom's face went still. What are you talking about? Ask your fiancé about his previous marriage, about what happened to his father-in-law's estate. She left without another word. I waited until her footsteps faded before pulling out the envelope Walter had given me last week. Inside was a key and an address for a safety deposit box. The bank opened at 9. I sat in the parking lot, watching the sun rise over buildings that felt too permanent, too unchanged by Walter's absence. The safety deposit box contained another envelope, this one in Dad's handwriting. For Cricket, when the storm hits. My hands shook as I read his letter. With each word, the pieces clicked together. Dad's suspicious questions about Gregory years ago, Walter's careful planning, the trail of financial records that would destroy Gregory's reputation and business. But the final paragraph stopped my breath. Remember, sweetheart, revenge is like poison. It might hurt your enemy, but it burns you first. Whatever you choose, choose it for yourself, not against them. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophie. Mom's crying. Greg's yelling. What did you do? Before I could respond, another message came through. From Gregory. Meeting. Now. Your grandfather's house. Come alone, or the evidence about his cognitive state goes public. I drove to Walter's house in a daze. Dad's letter burning a hole in my pocket. Gregory's car was already there, parked crooked in his haste. He stood in the living room, holding a manila envelope. Your grandfather was quite the detective. Runs in the family. This ends now. He waved the envelope. You back off, let the house sale proceed normally, and these records stay buried. Otherwise what? I pulled out my own envelope. You'll destroy Walter's reputation. Funny thing about dead men, they're beyond caring. But your investors might care about these. His face twisted. You're just like your father, too righteous to see reality. Your mother needs this sale. Sophie's school, our future. Don't. The word came out like a whip crack. Don't pretend this is about them. Walter told me everything about your last wife's father, how you manipulated the conservatorship, sold his property, left him in a state facility to die. Gregory moved faster than I expected. The envelope tore from my grasp, papers scattering like dead leaves. His fingers dug into my arm. You have no idea what you're dealing with, little girl. Actually, a new voice said, I think she does. We both turned. Mom stood in the doorway, phone recording everything. Behind her, a man in a suit watched with professional interest. Detective, Mom said quietly, I believe this is what you needed to see. Gregory's grip went slack. As the detective read him his rights, Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. She didn't need to. We both knew this victory tasted like ashes. I picked up Dad's scattered letter, his words blurring through my tears. Remember, revenge burns you first. He was right. I'd won. But at what cost? In destroying Gregory, I'd also destroyed whatever was left of my family. The question was, where do you go when winning feels exactly like losing? The reading of Walter's will felt like a funeral all over again, but with sharks circling instead of mourners. Mom sat rigid beside her lawyer, while Sophie huddled in the corner, phone forgotten for once. Gregory's absence hung in the air like smoke. Before we proceed, Walter's lawyer began. There's a video Mr. Carter requested we watch. The screen flickered to life, showing Walter in his study, looking stronger than his final days. If you're watching this, he said, I'm gone. And knowing my daughter and her fiancé, they're ready to pounce. Mom flinched, but Mason and I learned something watching Gregory destroy his last family. Patience is everything. Walter's eyes seemed to meet mine through the screen. So we waited, we watched, and we planned. The lawyer paused the video, distributing thick folders, financial records, property deeds, and evidence of Mr. Benson's previous activities. Mom's hand shook as she opened her folder. This can't be real. Oh, it's real. I pulled out Dad's letter. Dad started investigating Gregory years ago. When he first tried to buy into Dad's business, he found everything. The fraud, the elder abuse, the hidden accounts. Why didn't he say anything? Mom's voice cracked. Because you wouldn't have believed him. Just like you didn't believe me about the college fund or about Gregory using you to get to Walter's property. The video resumed. Walter's voice filled the room. So here's what's going to happen. The house goes to Harmony, along with my estate, but there's a condition. I straightened, hearing this for the first time. She has to offer her mother a choice. Walter's eyes twinkled. Lydia, you can keep everything Gregory promised you, the lifestyle, the status, his empty words, or you can have your daughter back, but you can't have both. Mom's lawyer leaned forward. This stipulation isn't legally binding. No, Mom cut him off. It's not about legality. Sophie stood suddenly. I should go. This is family stuff. Sophie, wait. I caught her arm. You're as much a victim here as anyone. Stay. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's more. Mr. Carter set up a trust for both Harmony and Sophie's education, separate from any other assets. Sophie sank back down, tears streaming silently. He what? Mom whispered. Because that's what family actually does, I said. They protect each other. They don't steal from their children or use them as pawns. I never meant. Mom's composure cracked. Everything I did, I thought I was building something better, something stable. By erasing Dad, by throwing away everything he worked for, by surviving. She stood, mascara running. Do you know how terrified I was? Alone with a teenager, no career of my own. Gregory offered security, a future. I wanted to feel safe. And I wanted my mother. The words came out raw. I wanted the mom who used to make Sunday pancakes and laugh at Dad's terrible jokes. The one who taught me to be strong, not the one who threw away her daughter for a con man's promises. Mom moved toward me, then stopped, uncertain. Is it too late? I thought about Dad's letter, about Walter's final lessons in strategy and sacrifice, about the difference between winning and healing. That depends, I said quietly. Are you ready to choose? She looked around the room, at the evidence of Gregory's deception, at Sophie's tears, at the paused image of Walter on the screen. Then she reached for her engagement ring. I should have chosen you from the beginning. The ring clattered on the table. I'm so sorry, Harmony. It wasn't enough, not yet. But as Sophie came to hug her mother, as the lawyer continued reading Walter's carefully crafted provisions, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, exactly, but possibility. Dad's letter had warned me about the cost of revenge. But maybe Walter's final move wasn't about revenge at all. Maybe it was about giving us all a chance to choose differently. I touched the ring on the table, this symbol of everything that had gone wrong. We've got a lot to figure out. Mom nodded, tears falling freely now. We do, but this time, I choose my daughter. The last box from Walter's study sat unopened on my new dorm room desk. Mom hovered in the doorway, uncertain whether to step in or stay back. We'd been doing this dance for weeks now, testing boundaries, rebuilding trust, one careful moment at a time. Sophie's settling into her new school, she said. The trust fund, it means everything to her. I nodded, running my fingers over the box's worn edges. Walter knew what he was doing, for all of us. He did. She stepped inside, touching a framed photo of Dad and Walter I'd hung on the wall. I found something at the house yesterday, in the attic. She pulled out an envelope, Dad's handwriting visible through the worn paper. It's addressed to both of us. I haven't opened it. My hands shook as I broke the seal. Inside was a single chess piece, a queen, and a note. Remember, the queen protects her family, but she's strongest when she knows which battles matter. Love, Mason. Mom's breath caught. He knew. About Gregory. About everything. He was trying to warn me. No, I said, studying the chess piece. He was teaching us both, like that last game we played, when he let me win by sacrificing his queen to save his king. I don't understand. Sometimes winning isn't about destroying your opponent. It's about protecting what matters, even if it costs you something. I opened Walter's box, revealing stacks of photos, Mom and Dad's wedding, my childhood birthdays, family vacations, moments Gregory had tried to erase, preserved by two men who'd understood the long game better than I had. "I've been thinking about Walter's house," I said quietly. "It's too big for just visits during breaks." Mom stiffened. "You're not dropping out." "No, but maybe you and Sophie could live there. Keep it in the family. Harmony." She touched the chess piece. "That house is your inheritance, and family is my legacy. That's what Dad and Walter were trying to tell us." I pulled out a photo. Mom teaching me to ride a bike, Dad catching me as I fell. Gregory almost won by making us forget that. She sat on my bed, tears falling. "I don't deserve this chance." Maybe not. But Dad thought we both deserved to learn from his last lesson. I held out the queen. "Besides, someone needs to help Sophie navigate senior year. And I hear her new guardian knows something about fresh starts." Mom laughed through her tears. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good teachers." I placed the chess piece on my desk, next to the photo of Dad and Walter, even if it took me a while to understand their lessons. A knock at the door made us turn. Sophie stood there, holding a familiar French press coffee maker. "Found this in storage," she said hesitantly. "Thought maybe your dad would want it to have a home here." I felt something shift, like the final piece of a puzzle, clicking into place. Not perfect, not completely healed, but possible, real. "Come in," I said. "I'll teach you how to use it." Dad had a whole ritual. Said coffee was just an excuse for family to slow down and talk. As Sophie set up the coffee maker, as Mom shared stories about Dad's terrible coffee puns, I thought about Walter's final gift, not the money or the house, but this moment. Three broken people learning to be family again, differently, but maybe better. The queen stood guard on my desk, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in winning the game, but in changing how you play it. Dad and Walter had known that all along. They'd given us the pieces, we just had to figure out how to use them. I opened my window, letting in the autumn air, somewhere between revenge and forgiveness, between holding on and letting go. We'd found our way home. Home, different family, but ours all the same. The coffee maker gurgled, filling the room with the scent of memories and possibilities. We had a lot to learn, a lot to rebuild, but for now this was enough. 3 cups of coffee, 2 generations of lessons, and one family finding its way back together.
Birthdays are supposed to be celebrations, not funerals for 30-year marriages. Yet here I sat, staring at divorce papers wrapped in silver gift paper, complete with a gaudy bow on top. Frank always did have a twisted sense of humor. I'm Elsie, and my husband just told me he wants to start a new life. Without me. On my 55th birthday. "I think it's best if we handle this amicably," Frank said, his voice carrying that same measured tone he used when explaining complex engineering problems to clients. "I've already spoken with my lawyer. He's drawn up a fair settlement." The restaurant buzzed around us, other diners laughing and clinking glasses. A waiter hovered nearby, probably wondering why the woman at table 12 was clutching unopened gift wrap like it might explode. "Fair?" The word tasted bitter. "You ambush me at dinner and call this fair?" Frank adjusted his collar, a nervous tic I'd noticed over 3 decades of marriage. "I thought a public place would help keep things civil." "Civil?" I laughed, drawing stares from nearby tables. "Like serving divorce papers for dessert?" "Lower your voice, Elsie. People are starting to stare." "Let them." I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against hardwood. 30 years, Frank. 30 years of cooking your meals, ironing your shirts, supporting your career. And this is how you thank me? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I've given you everything you could want. A beautiful home, financial security. Everything except loyalty." The words shot out before I could stop them. His face tightened. "This isn't about loyalty. We've grown apart. You must have noticed." Of course I'd noticed. The late nights at work, the mysterious business trips, the new cologne he'd started wearing 6 months ago. I wasn't stupid, just willfully blind. "Is there someone else?" Frank's silence was answer enough. "Who is she?" "That's not important right now." He reached for his wallet, pulling out crisp bills. "Let's not make this uglier than it needs to be." I stood up, my hands shaking. You're right about one thing, Frank. This doesn't need to be ugly. I picked up my water glass. It can be spectacular. The water hit his face before he could react, drawing gasps from nearby diners. As it dripped down his expensive shirt, I saw something I'd never seen before, fear in his eyes. Happy birthday to me, I said, dropping the empty glass on the table. And Frank, tell your lawyer to expect a call from mine. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, leaving behind 3 decades of marriage and a very wet soon-to-be ex-husband. My phone buzzed in my purse, probably Megan calling to wish me happy birthday. Our daughter didn't know yet. Nobody did. In the parking lot, my composure cracked. Tears burned my eyes as I fumbled with my car keys, but I refused to let them fall. Frank wanted amicable. He should have thought of that before gift-wrapping my heartbreak. The divorce papers sat in my passenger seat, that ridiculous bow mocking me. I started the engine, my mind already racing with questions. Where would I live? What would I tell our friends? How would Megan react? But beneath the fear and hurt, something else stirred, something that felt dangerously like revenge. Frank thought he could discard me like yesterday's newspaper, start fresh with whoever she was. He thought I'd roll over, take his fair settlement, and disappear quietly. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I pulled out of the parking lot, leaving behind the restaurant where my marriage ended. Ahead lay uncertainty, fear, and pain, but also possibility. And perhaps, just perhaps, the sweet taste of justice. Happy birthday to me, indeed. Megan's face twisted with rage as she paced my kitchen, her heels clicking against the tile like angry punctuation marks. He did what? I watched her from my seat at the counter, wondering how my daughter had grown into such a fierce defender. The divorce papers lay between us, that gaudy bow now crushed and forgotten. Your father thinks he's being generous, I said, tracing the rim of my coffee mug. He's offering me the house. The house you both own? How magnanimous of him. Megan stopped pacing, her marketing executive persona slipping into place. What about his pension, the investments, the vacation property? According to these papers, those stay with him, for his retirement plans. His retirement plans? Megan's laugh could have cut glass. I'm calling him. Megan, don't. But she already had her phone out, jabbing at the screen. The call connected on speaker, Frank's voice filling the kitchen. Megan, I'm in a meeting. Cancel it. We need to talk about what you did to Mom. A heavy sigh crackled through the speaker. Your mother and I are handling this like adults. I'd appreciate if you'd stay out of it. Stay out of it? Megan's knuckles whitened around the phone. You served her divorce papers on her birthday, in a restaurant. It was a controlled environment. It was cruel, Dad. And this settlement, it's insulting. The settlement is more than fair. His voice took on that condescending tone I'd grown to hate. Your mother hasn't worked in 30 years. The house gives her security. The house gives you an easy out, Megan snapped. What about the money you've been moving around lately? Those new accounts Mom doesn't know about? The silence that followed was deafening. I straightened in my chair, watching my daughter's face carefully. What accounts? Lucas noticed some irregularities when he was helping you with your taxes last month, Megan said, her eyes locked on the phone. Want to explain those, Dad? Your husband had no right to go through my personal finances. Frank's voice had lost its patronizing edge, replaced by something sharper. And you have no right to interfere in matters between your mother and me. Someone needs to look out for her interests, since you clearly aren't. I'm done discussing this. The line went dead. Megan set the phone down carefully, too carefully. Mom, there's something you need to know. Lucas found... Not yet. I stood up, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. First, I need a lawyer. Then we can talk about what Lucas found. I have a name, someone who specializes in high-conflict divorces. She pulled out a business card, sliding it across the counter. She's expensive, but she's the best. I picked up the card, running my thumb over the embossed letters. Your father will be furious if I challenge the settlement. Good. Megan's smile was all teeth. Let him be furious. Let him see what happens when he underestimates you. Looking at my daughter, I saw myself at her age, fierce, determined, ready to take on the world. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost that fire. Or maybe I just buried it under years of compromise and careful peacekeeping. There's something else, Megan said, her expression softening. Lucas and I want you to stay with us until this is sorted out. The guest room's already made up. I couldn't impose. It's not imposing. It's family. She reached across the counter, squeezing my hand. Besides, it'll drive Dad crazy knowing you're not sitting at home waiting for his next move. For the first time since that disastrous birthday dinner, I felt something like hope. Frank thought he had me cornered, relegated to the role of discarded wife, accepting whatever scraps he deigned to offer. He'd forgotten who I was before I became Mrs. Frank Anderson. Time to remind him. I picked up the divorce papers, noting how my hands no longer shook. Call the lawyer, set up a meeting. I met Megan's gaze, seeing my own determination reflected back. Let's show your father what happens when he mistakes kindness for weakness. The photograph landed on my lawyer's desk with the weight of a bomb. Lucas had found it buried in Frank's cloud storage. My husband and a woman I didn't recognize, intimately entangled at what looked like a hotel bar. The date stamp showed 3 months ago, during what Frank had called a critical business conference in Phoenix. Her name is Grace Matthews, Lucas said, his usual calm demeanor tinged with disgust. She was a consultant at Frank's company before he retired, 35 years old. The age hit me like a physical blow, 20 years younger than me. I stared at her glossy, dark hair, her perfectly manicured hands on my husband's arm, the way she looked at him like he was her future. There's more, Megan added, pulling out her tablet. She's been appointed to 3 different tech company boards in the last 6 months, companies Frank had connections with. My lawyer, Catherine Walsh, studied the information with sharp eyes. And the accounts you mentioned? Lucas pulled up several spreadsheets. Frank's been moving significant amounts into offshore accounts. Started about 8 months ago, right around when Grace Matthews began her meteoric rise in the industry. He's been planning this, I said, my voice hollow. All those late nights, the business trips, the secret phone calls. He wasn't just having an affair. He was building her career. With your marital assets, Catherine noted, typing rapidly, this changes everything. The settlement he offered isn't just unfair, it's fraudulent. A memory surfaced. Frank at our kitchen table, asking me to sign papers for what he called retirement planning. I'd trusted him completely, never questioning, never doubting. What's our next move? Megan asked, her hand squeezing mine. Catherine's smile was predatory. We file for emergency injunctions on all accounts. Then we request a forensic accountant to trace every penny he's moved. And most importantly, she tapped the photograph. We make it clear we know about Grace. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank. We need to talk. Dinner tonight? He knows we're here, I said, showing them the message. He's trying to control the situation. Good, Catherine replied. Let him think he still can. Meet him for dinner, record everything. But first, she handed me a stack of papers. Sign these. We're filing them this afternoon. Later, at an upscale restaurant Frank had chosen, I watched him fidget with his wedding ring, the one he still wore, despite everything. His tell when he was about to lie. Elsie, be reasonable, he started. This hostile approach isn't like you. No? I sipped my wine, savoring the moment. How would you know what I'm like, Frank? You've been too busy with Grace Matthews to notice. The color drained from his face. Who told you? Does it matter? What matters is what you've been doing with our money, our future. I can explain the board appointments, the offshore accounts, the hotel rooms. Each question hit him like a slap. Save your explanations for the forensic accountant. He leaned forward, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You're making a mistake. I offered you a clean break, a comfortable life. Don't throw that away for spite. Spite? I met his gaze steadily. No, Frank, this isn't spite. This is justice. You'll get nothing, he snarled. I'll fight you every step. Like you fought for those board positions for Grace? I stood, dropping my napkin on the table. I wonder what the ethics committees would think about that. Fear flickered in his eyes, real fear, like at my birthday dinner. But this time, I didn't just see it. I savored it. You taught me something, Frank, I said, gathering my purse. You taught me that sometimes the people we trust the most deserve it the least. I'll remember that lesson. And so will you. I left him there, staring at his untouched meal, knowing his perfectly planned future was unraveling thread by thread. In my purse, my phone recorded every word, every threat, every admission. The game had changed. Frank thought he was dealing with the same compliant wife who'd signed papers without reading them, who'd believed every lie, who'd put his needs first for 30 years. He was about to discover just how wrong he was. The email arrived at 3 in the morning, sent from an address I didn't recognize. One line of text followed by attachments. You should know what you're up against. I clicked through photos of Frank and Grace at various events, each more intimate than the last. Then came the documents: bank statements, property records, incorporation papers. Grace's name appeared everywhere, woven through Frank's business dealings like a poisonous thread. My hands shook as I forwarded everything to Catherine. Sleep was impossible now, so I wandered into Megan and Lucas's kitchen, where the midnight silence felt less oppressive than my temporary bedroom. Mom? Lucas appeared in the doorway, laptop under his arm. I heard you up. Anonymous email, I said, gesturing to my phone. Someone's feeding us information. He set his laptop on the counter, pulling up files. I've been tracking Frank's digital footprint. There's something else you need to see. The screen showed a real estate listing, a modern penthouse downtown, purchased 3 months ago through a shell company. The kind of place Frank always claimed was wastefully extravagant. It gets worse, Lucas said quietly. Check the move-in date. Next week, the same week Frank had insisted we needed to finalize the divorce. He's been planning this for months, I whispered. Years, maybe. There's more, Lucas hesitated. The shell company? Grace is listed as co-owner. The kitchen suddenly felt too small. I grabbed my car keys. Mom, where are you going? To see my house, while it's still mine. Lucas grabbed his jacket. I'm coming with you. The drive was silent. Our family home emerged from the darkness, its familiar outline now seeming false, like a stage set hiding ugly truths. My key still worked. Inside, everything looked normal. Family photos, collected memories, 30 years of life together. But something was off. The study, I realized, heading upstairs. Frank's private space had always been off limits. His sanctuary for work, he'd called it. Now I knew better. The door was locked, but Lucas made quick work of it. Inside, Frank's usually immaculate desk was chaos. Papers everywhere, drawers left open. He's been here tonight, Lucas said, examining the mess. Looking for something specific. I started sorting through papers, muscle memory from years of organizing Frank's life taking over. Bank statements, investment records, a half-empty bottle of expensive scotch I'd never seen before. Then I found it, buried under tax forms. A handwritten letter from Grace. Frank, everything's ready. The boards are secured, the accounts are clean. After the divorce, we'll have full control. She'll never know how long we've been planning this. All your careful grooming of me is about to pay off. The words blurred. I sat heavily in Frank's chair, the leather still warm from his recent presence. Mom? Lucas's voice seemed far away. He didn't just betray me, I said, my voice strange to my own ears. He used me. All those years I supported him, managed his life, helped him climb the corporate ladder. I was just a stepping stone. Lucas gathered the papers quickly, taking photos with his phone. This is evidence. Catherine can use this. No. I stood up, something cold and clear crystallizing in my chest. Not yet. Frank's looking for these papers for a reason. They're valuable to him. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to stop playing defense. I picked up Frank's scotch bottle, studying it. He taught Grace everything she knows about business, but he taught me everything about him. A car door slammed outside. Headlights swept across the windows. He's back, Lucas whispered. I grabbed the letters and key documents, leaving the rest scattered. Good. Let him wonder what's missing. Let him worry about what I know. We slipped out the back door as Frank's key turned in the front lock. In the car, Lucas looked at me with concern. Are you okay? I watched my house, Frank's house, disappear in the rearview mirror. No, but I will be. Because now I know exactly what kind of game we're playing. And for the first time, I was ready to play to win. The art studio smelled of turpentine and possibility. Megan had insisted I take these classes, claiming I needed something for myself. What she really meant was I needed somewhere to be that wasn't her guest room, obsessing over Frank's betrayal. Your strokes are too controlled, my instructor said, studying my canvas. Let go of the precision. Feel the emotion. Easier said than done. 30 years of measuring my words, controlling my reactions, being the perfect corporate wife, it becomes a habit. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meeting at Riverside Cafe in 30 minutes. Come alone. Gee, Grace. My hands trembled, smearing red paint across the canvas like a wound. I need to go, I told the instructor, already reaching for my bag. The cafe was busy. Smart choice on her part. Public enough to feel safe, noisy enough for privacy. Grace sat at a corner table looking exactly like her photos. Polished, poised, younger than my marriage. Thank you for coming, Elsie. Her smile was practiced, professional. I thought it was time we met. I sat down, noting how she'd positioned herself to watch the door. Why? Because Frank is going to destroy both of us if we let him. That wasn't what I expected. Funny, from the letters I found, you two seemed quite cozy. Letters can lie. She slid a folder across the table. Like these board appointments he arranged for me. They come with strings, and evidence of securities fraud. I didn't touch the folder. Why tell me this? Because he's setting me up to take the fall. Her perfect composure cracked slightly. The offshore accounts, the irregular trades, everything's in my name. When the SEC investigates, and they will, I'll be the scapegoat. While Frank walks away clean, I finished, pieces clicking into place, with my money and your reputation. He's better at this game than either of us realized. She leaned forward, but together. Stop. I held up my hand. Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. You helped him betray me. I did. No denial, no excuse. And now I'm helping you destroy him. Take the folder, Elsie. Use it. My phone buzzed again. Frank this time. Where are you? We need to talk about the house papers. Grace's eyes flickered to the message. He's getting desperate. The SEC's starting their preliminary inquiry next week. I stood up, leaving the folder untouched. Handle your own mess. He'll win, she called after me. He always wins. Outside, the autumn air felt thick with possibilities. I called Catherine. Grace Matthews just tried to make a deal, I said when she answered. Something about SEC investigations and fraud evidence. Don't touch anything she offers, Catherine warned. It could be a trap. I know. I watched Grace through the cafe window, seeing not a manipulative homewrecker, but another of Frank's carefully positioned pawns. But what if we let her think I did? That evening, at my art class's open studio hours, I stood before a fresh canvas. The instructor's words echoed, let go of the precision, feel the emotion. I thought of Frank's betrayal, of Grace's desperation, of 30 years reduced to legal documents and hidden accounts. My brush moved without conscious thought, spreading dark colors across white space. Mom? Megan's voice behind me. That's intense. I stepped back, seeing my painting through her eyes, chaos and anger and pain made visible, not precise, not controlled, not safe. Frank called me today, Megan said quietly. He's worried about you, says you're not thinking clearly. I laughed, harsh and genuine. He should be worried, but not about my clarity. My phone lit up with another message from Grace. Time's running out. What's your answer? I studied my painting, all that contained rage finally breaking free. Then I typed, meet me tomorrow, same place. Bring everything you have. Mom? Megan touched my arm. What are you planning? I picked up my brush again, adding one final streak of red across the canvas. I'm done being a pawn, sweetheart. It's time to play like a queen. The paint looked like blood in the studio's harsh lights. Good, because one way or another, someone was going to bleed. The boardroom at Catherine's law office felt like a tomb. Frank sat across from me, Grace beside him, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. The SEC documents lay between us like landmines. This is a mistake, Elsie, Frank said, his voice carrying that familiar patronizing tone. You're letting emotion cloud your judgment. I studied the man I'd loved for 30 years, searching for any trace of the person I thought I knew. Emotion? Like the kind that made you forge my signature on those transfer documents? His facade cracked slightly. That's a serious accusation. Everything in these files is serious. I pushed the documents toward him. Securities fraud, money laundering, creative accounting that would make Bernie Madoff blush. Grace shifted uncomfortably. Frank's hand twitched toward hers, then stopped. The gesture wasn't lost on me. "You're still trying to protect her," I said quietly, "even now when she's helped me build this case against you." His head snapped toward Grace, who paled visibly. "What?" "Don't act surprised, Frank." My voice stayed steady, though my hands shook under the table. "Did you really think she'd take the fall for you? That she'd sacrifice herself for love? Grace?" His voice held a dangerous edge. She straightened, mask slipping into place. "It's business, Frank. You taught me that." The look he gave her could have frozen hell. Then he smiled, that same smile he'd worn when serving me divorce papers on my birthday. "Interesting play," he said, standing. "But you've overlooked something crucial." He pulled out his phone, tapped briefly, then set it on the table. "Check your email, Catherine." My lawyer frowned, opening her laptop. Her sharp intake of breath made my stomach drop. "What is it?" I asked. "He's filed a countersuit," Catherine said slowly, "alleging you knew about and approved all financial transactions, with documentation." "Impossible. The renovation contracts," Frank cut in smoothly. "The charity board minutes, all those papers you signed without reading, trusting your loving husband to handle the details." His smile widened. "Your signature is on everything, darling, and unlike mine, they're all authentic." The room spun slightly. All those years of blind trust, of signing whatever he put in front of me, of playing the supportive wife. "You'll go down with me," I managed. "No, Elsie. I'll weather this storm with my young, naive protege who was led astray by my manipulative, soon-to-be ex-wife." He gathered his papers carefully. "The board members know me. They'll believe what's easier to accept, that a bitter woman is seeking revenge, not that their trusted colleague orchestrated fraud." Grace sat frozen, her ambitious future crumbling visibly. "You're bluffing," I whispered. "Try me." He headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Elsie? The art studio called. They're concerned about your recent, aggressive works. Apparently, my worried calls about your mental state made quite an impression." The door closed behind him with terrible finality. "He's thought of everything," Grace said numbly. "He always does." Catherine was already typing frantically, damage control mode engaged, but I barely heard her strategy suggestions. All I could see was Frank's smile, the same one he'd worn at our wedding, at Megan's birth, at countless dinner parties where I'd played the perfect corporate wife. My phone buzzed, Megan asking how the meeting went. I couldn't answer. Couldn't tell her that her father had just outmaneuvered us all. Couldn't admit that 30 years of trust had become the weapon of my own destruction. "What do we do now?" Grace asked, looking as lost as I felt. I stood up, legs unsteady. "I need air." In the hallway, I caught my reflection in a window. Gray-streaked hair, lines earned from years of smiling at Frank's jokes, wearing Frank's choices, being Frank's wife. My phone buzzed again. A text from Frank. "The house papers need your signature by tomorrow. Let's not make this messier than it needs to be." I pressed my forehead against the cool glass, watching the city below continue its normal rhythm, unaware that my world was imploding. Then I straightened, remembering my latest painting, chaos and rage and something else, something that looked like freedom. Frank had thought of everything. Almost everything. The annual tech industry gala buzzed with artificial cheer, a perfect stage for what was about to unfold. I adjusted my black evening gown, the one Frank always said was too bold, and watched him work the room, Grace at his side like a trophy. Lucas appeared beside me, champagne in hand. The USB drive is planted in his laptop. Megan's got the presentation queued up. I checked my phone. One new message from Catherine. "SEC team standing by, give the signal." Frank caught my eye across the room, his smile faltering slightly. He excused himself from his group, making his way over. "Elsie, I didn't expect to see you here." "I'm still on the charity board, Frank. Remember? All those papers you had me sign?" His jaw tightened. "We should talk privately." "Actually," I gestured to the stage, "I believe you're about to give your retirement speech. Don't let me keep you. He studied my face, searching for tells he'd learned over 30 years. I gave him nothing. The chairman called Frank to the stage. Applause rippled through the room as he took his position behind the podium, Grace beaming from the front row. Distinguished colleagues, he began, after 30 years in this industry. The presentation screen behind him flickered. His carefully prepared slides disappeared, replaced by financial documents, email exchanges, and photos. All the evidence we'd gathered, now displayed for his peers to see. Frank faltered mid-sentence, turning to look. His face went ash-white. Keep going, Frank. I called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. Tell them about your retirement plans, the offshore accounts, the manipulated board appointments, the fraud you planned to pin on your mistress. Grace stood up sharply, her perfect composure cracking. You said you'd protect me. He lies, Grace. That's what he does. I moved toward the stage. He used my signatures to build his empire, used your ambition to create his scapegoat, and thought he could discard us both when it suited him. Security guards appeared at the doors. Not hotel security, but SEC agents. Frank saw them too. His hands gripped the podium. This is a mistake, he announced to the shocked crowd. My wife is unwell. Your wife, I cut in, has been working with federal investigators for weeks. Those signatures you relied on? Every document dated after your affair began is now evidence of coercion in a federal fraud investigation. The room erupted in whispers. Board members stepped back from Frank like he was contagious. Grace slipped toward the exit but found her path blocked by agents. You can't prove anything, Frank hissed, but his voice shook. Check your laptop, dear. The one you use for private trading. It's amazing what a forensic accountant can find with full access. His eyes widened. Finally, he understood. You taught me well, Frank. All those years watching you manipulate people, watching you build your house of cards. I smiled, his smile, the one he'd worn while serving me divorce papers. I learned. The SEC agents moved in. Grace was already in tears, spilling everything to save herself. Board members huddled with their lawyers, and Frank stood frozen, watching 30 years of careful planning collapse. The house papers, he said quietly as agents approached the stage. You never signed them. No, I didn't. I removed my wedding ring, placing it on the podium. Consider it my retirement gift to you. They led him away in handcuffs, past shocked colleagues and flashing phones, past Megan, who stood straight-backed, her father's daughter in strength if not in character, past the life we'd built on lies and careful signatures. In the chaos, Lucas touched my arm. You okay? I watched Frank disappear through the doors, shoulders slumped, no longer the giant who had dominated my life. I thought this would feel more like victory. Maybe it's not about winning, he said quietly. Maybe it's about surviving. My phone buzzed, Catherine confirming that everything was proceeding as planned. The legal machinery would grind forward, justice would be served, and I was free. The taste wasn't exactly sweet, but it wasn't bitter either. It tasted like truth, like strength, like tomorrow. The gallery hummed with opening night energy as visitors moved between my paintings. Each canvas told a piece of my story, rage, betrayal, rebirth, though the patrons saw only abstract emotion in bold strokes. The series is called Signatures, I heard the curator explain to a group. Each piece explores themes of identity and power. I touched the simple silver pendant at my throat, my first purchase with my own money after the divorce settlement. Frank's assets were frozen pending his trial, but my share had been secured, along with something far more valuable, my freedom. That one's my favorite, Megan said, pointing to a particular piece. Dark lines tangled with splashes of crimson, but at the center, a small spark of gold broke through. I'd painted it the day Frank's plea deal was finalized. Mine too, I admitted, though I'm not sure why. I do. She squeezed my hand. It's the first one where you let the light in. A commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Grace stood there, looking less polished than during her testimony that had helped convict Frank. She spotted me and moved forward, ignoring the curious stares. I wasn't sure you'd come, I said when she reached us. I almost didn't. She studied the painting before us, the one where gold broke through darkness. The board positions fell through. All of them. I know. Was it worth it? Burning everything down? I considered her question carefully. Ask me again in 10 years. She nodded, understanding what I couldn't quite say. We'd both lost and won in different ways. She turned to leave, then paused. Frank asked about you, in prison. What did you tell him? That you're having an art show. A ghost of her old smile appeared. He wouldn't understand what that means, would he? After she left, Lucas appeared with champagne. Sold another one. The big piece from your angry period? I laughed. Actually laughed. Is that what we're calling it? Better than the month Mom went nuclear on Dad, Megan quipped. The curator approached, beaming. Elsie, there's someone who'd like to discuss commissioning a series for their corporate offices. Go, Megan urged. Be brilliant. I moved through the gallery, noting how differently I carried myself now. No more careful steps, no more measured words. The woman who had signed papers without reading them was gone. Near the back wall hung my latest work, still untitled. Unlike the others, its colors were neither dark nor light, but something in between, complex, uncertain, real, like life after revenge. My phone buzzed. A message from Catherine. Judge denied Frank's appeal. It's really over. Over. Such a simple word for such a complicated truth. A young woman stood studying my untitled piece, her expression thoughtful. I can't decide if it's about endings or beginnings, she said as I approached. I touched my silver pendant, thinking of Frank in his prison cell, of Grace rebuilding her life, of Megan and Lucas's steadfast support, of my own reflection, finally recognizable again. Maybe it's both, I replied. Maybe that's the point. She nodded slowly. The technique here, it's unusual. Like you're signing your name across the whole canvas, over and over, but in colors instead of letters. I smiled, remembering all those years of signing Frank's papers, of writing his name beside mine, of letting my signature become a weapon he wielded. Sometimes, I said, you have to sign your name 1,000 times before you remember who you are. The gallery lights dimmed slightly, a signal that opening night was winding down. Soon Megan and Lucas would take me to dinner, and tomorrow I'd return to my studio, where blank canvases waited. Frank had taught me about power, about signatures, about careful plans and hidden motives. But he'd never understood the most important lesson. Sometimes the strongest signature isn't written at all. Sometimes it's painted in light breaking through darkness, in truth shattering lies, in the simple act of standing in a gallery surrounded by your own voice, finally and fully heard.